Have you heard the term? I heard the term for feeding the geese. Have you heard that? How do you feed? How do you feed geese? How do you spread seeds?
Hold on to your butt.
What have I been doing since then? I've been going to school, working 2 jobs, and streaming. Not a lot of streaming, playing a lot of games. And now not much else. Do you remember anything about the first episode? I remember it not I remember initially not being nervous or anything, but it definitely didn't go the way I thought it would, and then, like anything, you loosen up, things get a lot better, and I remember listening back to it, and just how funny it was, and how it super changed, because we started doing so much longer podcasts that we wouldn't even mean to. And when the first few were like, well, that was a good one. It was a nice, clean hour and a half. Whoa, how'd we do that? And then it was too late. And there was no looking back.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the BA Start podcast, show number 1. My name is Austin Gazzetti, joined by my brother,
Alex Gazzetti.
Yeah,
Bazooka.
the hostess with the mostest,
Well,
the man with the most experience in online gaming.
Past episode 1 before that happens.
Let's get past episode 1. That is,
Before we dub ourselves the hostess with the most.
you know what? I'm just gonna say it. Everybody, welcome to
fine.
the BA
I mean,
Start
that was the
podcast,
acronym.
the first.
Yeah, that stuff, I mean, obviously we got over that shit. I'm just wondering how many beers we had. I didn't have anxiety about it at first. I didn't really have anxiety about it anyway. I just drank every time. How did I feel about the first podcast, and I guess, for lack of another better word, our brand at that point? Well, seeing as how it was Austin's idea, I was kind of just along for the ride, and truth be told, I already had the stream stuff going on, and at that time it was going pretty well. That was cool for people to be able to check some of our stuff out or see our opinions on stuff in another way, but I don't know. I don't want to sound like a bummer. I didn't have a ton of faith in it. It was fun. It was a fun thing to do. Going in, it was like, well, this could be fun. Let's see what's happening. Fine. Let's throw a Sunday at this every week, and then people started being like, wow, you're super consistent. I was like, yeah, thanks. Okay. People were enjoying it. It was nice. How'd the podcast get its name? I mean, it's the fucking Konami code, I couldn't tell you. It's been a while. All I remember about the podcast name, really, is that we found that someone else had that name. And then we contacted him, and then he stopped using that name, which I thought he was going to put more of a hubbub behind it, because everything he was doing was much more successful. It's funny because, if I'm not mistaken, there was somebody doing it before us, then we started, and then we found somebody doing it alongside us, and they stopped theirs. Austin bought the domain, and then this guy was like, okay, you're cool, guys, don't worry about it, I'll change. He was probably like, this shit sucks, I'm gonna bail while I can. He did skeething hands. That's how I pictured him. Seemed like a nice guy. To ever listen back to the episodes? On occasion, but I was I was listening to other podcasts at the time, and I was on it, so I didn't feel like I needed to hear it. Sometimes, maybe you were drinking something that was a little stronger than your average IPA, and then I'd wake up, and then Austin would be like, dude, you were fucking stupid on the podcast last night. Or he'd be like, you said that last week. And I don't even think I needed to be drunk for that one. That was... I just repeat myself all the fucking time. Here's the thing, Austin, I tell you about this joke, and I start going into it. He's like, yes you did. Oh, okay, well, just act like you didn't hear it, and then I'll say it again. So I say it again. Austin's giving me a list, and he's very vague about what he's asked me, but he's asking me my statements, or on the segments. I read segments as statements. Jenny's gems. I mean, what's there to be said? Jenny had some gems. It was a name of one of our segments. It was what we'd award our. Wasn't it? That was what we what we're trying to showcase at the time. Then Derek's deals were just games we. It's funny because these people didn't pick these out. We picked them for them. It was a fucking dictatorship under the BA Start podcast roof. Jake Sudsley surprise. Oh boy, and we drank it. It was the beers. It was all beer. Am I wrong?
Let me add though, just off. Do you remember the song?
No.
That we came up with like halfway through. Open your mouth. Close your eyes. Here comes Jake's Sudsley surprise.
Who came up with that?
Wait. Sudsley surprise. Do you want to fuck me?
Who came up with that?
I don't know.
And of course, who could forget BA Sports Ball? It's my favorite segment. That was honestly the thing, when I would talk to people who didn't listen to, who didn't care about video games and shit. And I'd be like, well, we do this funny thing, you'd like it, BA Sports Ball, where my brother names this or that, and then we play it where I worked, we play it in the kitchen. And I remember getting, they wanted us to name players on, I think it was players from the Lakers. And now, Austin, just give me a nod or not if I was right about this. I think I named Jeremy Lin. Yeah, and that's how I won. And I only knew because of fucking a remix where they remixed Jeremy Lin talking, interviews and shit into this song. That's the only reason why I knew him.
Linsanity.
Nintendo. Anyway, we played that week, of course, which is sort of the root of all evil, in my opinion. I'm sure I'll be able to elaborate on that later. Weekly train passing? Oh yeah, of course. And I want to give a special shout out to the unsung hero Shigeru Miyamoto for crashing through our window every podcast.
Fine.
Was it Miyamoto? Did we talk about Dark Souls more than anything? Persona, Street Fighter, anything? Well, Austin and folks, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't think we did it all. Hi, I'm the BA Start Podcast. It's nice to meet you. What's that? You're playing Dark Souls? Tell me about it every week. Thanks, Dark Souls, for being a special guest. I mean, thanks for letting me be a guest on your podcast. I always had the ad reads, while definitely necessary and a part of the show, I always had a contention for, but it wasn't the product itself. It was the phoniness of reading an ad. Not that it can't be sincere, but Austin knows. Maybe he'll elaborate with a tale about when we got a loot box ad. It's not something I'd put on my resume, I'll tell you that. by the way, don't use those codes. They do not exist. And we'll probably be charged or some shit. Just don't do it. I hosted a show with Crowley. Let me think. Oh yeah, the episode we did together. It went okay. I mean, I'm not used to playing the role of the straight man in terms of like, I hope you understand what I'm saying here. In terms of like keeping the flow of the show, I'm usually the fucking dude who puts the pebbles on the train track and lets the fucking car just fly off the rails into town. And so it was fine. You know, he was pretty reserved, if I remember right. It wasn't too bad. I did get the chance to not talk about Dark Souls, so it was cool. Yeah, it went better than I thought it would, really. Yeah, I remember wanting him to have more energy. I don't know. It's been a long time since I even thought about that. It's fine. The music choices were never... I rarely got any sort of beat, like... for how many podcasts we did? 100 something. I might have gotten... Shit. Austin was really like, we're fucking done with your shit. No longer. It's like, I heard this cool song. No. We're putting in Volbeat. It's like, that's not video games. Well, doesn't matter. I like it. And it's 45 seconds of Volbeat. Get fucked. Austin's handed me another piece of paper. It's just, oh, but of course. We got a list of folks here. Derek, friend of the show. As Austin said every time. Everyone. What if they weren't a friend of the show? What if Derek was like, actually, you're not on my top 8 MySpace, okay? Derek, the thing about Derek is that he was always, we needed a visual element when Derek was in the studio. Because he was always doing this shit when Austin was talking and stuff, and you can't, like, I'm just looking at him, and he's fucking being goofy as shit, and Austin's looking at his laptop and doesn't see shit. He's like, I missed it. What do you do? Derek was great. And he was always really reliable with that. He would always show up. Jake's appearance was fucking hilarious. Man, I remember just laughing our asses off. That was really funny. And he came all the way out from the Big C, Cali. Mickey was so nervous that he started drinking and he was popping bottles. Like, Austin and I definitely would get drunk on the podcast, but like, he'd just put it away, grab another one, put it away. He's a really shy person, and he was trying to loosen up. And he just, he just would fucking go. And Nick, of course, I don't know if you put an L or a capital I, but that's great. It's Nick. Anyway, Nick's funny as shit too. He's my pal, and he's someone who anyone could do a podcast with without even like going into much, doing much effort. Fungo's great. Fungo's also doing great now. Fungo, I think Fungo's going to be partnered pretty soon. He's really on that grind. Drew, I listened to that podcast really recently. Drew was really funny. One of my favorite jokes from listening to that. I was driving to school. My reservoir of podcasts had been dried, and I was listening to that hours. That's what it took. And it was the Drew episode, and he talked about Katy Perry and Taylor Swift's feud, and it was something like Katy Perry's mad at Taylor Swift, or vice versa, because Katy Perry had like some of her backup dancers in her video, and he went, yeah, I'm sure Katy went, bring me 3 of Taylor's finest. And that cracked me. The thing is, it's weird because with a mic on, Drew and I sounded very similar. I was like, did I make that fucking joke? That was the shit. Matt S., the guy I work with, I was happy to have him on too. He's really reserved too. He's pretty shy. Not when he's around people he knows, but he was getting really anxious too. And it's funny because there's a point in the podcast where he just gets, he opens way up, and that's because he's drunk. Matt G never had any problems opening up for about anything. And those were some of the podcasts that went pretty off the rails. There were ones where it was like, we're not talking about video games anymore. We're not talking about things that are fun to talk about anymore. This is all just this is a soapbox now. Ashley. Oh, yeah. We had my sister and my brother-in-law on? That was weird. That's weird. I have nothing to say about that. That's fucking weird. Mustache. I don't remember much about her appearance on the podcast because I don't remember. I think I was just going out that night and I came back in later and fucking completely stole the show. It was mine at that point. And I just was drunk and smashed it. You know, there's a lot of drinking going on. You'd think that we're all alcoholics, which may be true, but this was only every week, once a week, and then other times that week we'd get, look, don't judge us. So anyway, she was there, and it didn't really matter because I came slamming into the garage and like just was like, it's my turn, and just start. Ooh, gross. Please cut that out. Digitally edit that.
You scared the shit out of her, by the way.
Yeah, I know, and I didn't mean to. I had nothing against her. I was just like, I got a story to tell, so I started telling it. And then of course, Crowley. Crowley was my pal. Rest in peace, Crowley. Crowley's not dead, by the way. He's not dead. He's fine. I don't talk to him anymore.
It's gonna be fucking heart attack.
Jake and his work that he did for us in terms of the designs, he's fucking talented. It's weird because I never really knew him as like an artist per se. Like, I know he doodled and stuff, but I didn't know how much he had like really worked on his craft. I mean, he had to, obviously he's going to school for it, but by the time he was showing us designs, or even just looking at his other designs, or some of the stuff he did that wasn't even design when he was in school at Full Sail, it's like, holy shit, where was him doing all this? It wasn't a hobby for him. It was just, you know, when he needed to do it, he put it together, and then he started doing our designs for us and liked the podcast and stuff. He was super supportive, and he does awesome work. He did a lot of cool stuff for us, like that people would have had to pay a lot of money for, and we definitely paid him, but it wasn't what he deserved, really. He needed to get way more than sorry, Jake. We'll get you back. I thought you paid him.
No, I didn't pay him.
I thought you gave him a couple bucks. I thought you slid him some cash. He gave us cash. Jenny came into my stream when I was doing a 24-hour. It was at least going to be 24-hour, I'm pretty sure, but I tried to stream every single Silent Hill game, and I don't fucking know why I thought I would have been able to do that, because, you know, I'm pretty well versed on a lot of them, but there's some I don't really know everything about, and I'm not going to be able to fly through, and that is just like, when you don't know that, it's not going to take you a couple hours. It's going to take you 8 hours. So there is like, shit, man, like 6 or 7 of those games. 4 or 5. Yeah, there's like 12 of those fucking games or something like that. And anyway, it was taking a while, but she was there through a lot of it. She followed me. She kept coming in. She was pretty awesome. And then she started listening to the podcast, loving the podcast. Jenny's great. Love you, Jenny. We started doing the live Facebook stuff. It was funny because people who wouldn't have and will not watch the podcast, or watch the podcast, that was the big problem. They wouldn't listen to the podcast. They thought that was the podcast. Yeah, I saw your podcast. You didn't see it. If you saw it, that means you're some kind of weirdo who watches us through the windows while we're recording, because it's all audio. That's just to butter you up and get people in to listen and shit, which none of them did because they all thought that was the podcast. So it became a lot of, this is not the podcast, but I know Austin has a story about it. People would kind of come up to us that we knew and be like, I saw that and it was fucking funny. It cracked me up. And that was kind of cool. But then again, it was like, you'd get another person who'd be like, yeah, that's cute. And it was like, you go fuck yourself. What are you doing on your Sunday nights? You're probably fucking curling up in some kind of bubble bath, fucking sitting there with your bath salts and shit, smoking a little crack, sitting and doing a fireside chat. It's disgusting, and I'm tired of it. When we did live shows on Twitch, it was always weird because we were scrambling to fucking put everything together. So many aspects of it like wouldn't work properly. It was just a real slapdash thing. And it was funny being able to see chat and like get live reactions from people who gave a fucking turkey about what we were kind of talking about. But the excitement always faded out, and you saw that when like chat would be into it and then they just be like, yeah, whatever. Like it just drop off after like halfway through. But when we were doing those, we weren't doing full 4-hour fucking podcasts anymore. Or at that time during those. And so in that regard, I thought it was cool. It was a little weird always being like looked at when you're used to just being able to like fucking chug a beer and pick your nose at the same time. Yeah, you try that one at home, kids. Memorable moment from the show? Man. A lot of shit I forgot is the problem. Let me think about it in terms of like thinking back, what is the thing I remember the most? A lot of it is just the BA sports ball stuff, because I thought that those are always pretty funny. It's just things, people would give us feedback about stuff, and that's when I would hear feedback, which, because it was rare probably, that's when I would remember certain things. People liked BA Sports Ball, people liked certain aspects, and as few and far between as they were, when they would say that, like that's, like the good feeling would come from that. And eventually people kind of stopped that, so that ended up being, that was kind of the thing that was like, okay, this is getting weird now. I'm not really into this. The bat incident, yeah. Now that you mention it, yeah, that was probably one of the better moments of the podcast, just because it was so fucking, that and that giant bee. Do you remember that fucking giant bee? It was huge. And I remember just sitting there half listening to you and watching this bee on the light just hover on the wall. It was like one of those fucking Japanese hornets that will like put a bullet hole in you if they sting you. But like that was one thing. The bat was flying around and we just kept the audio on as we tried to just like, it was basically the scene from fucking Tommy Boy or whatever that, I don't know if it was Tommy Boy or the other one. Where they're trying to get the bat out of the cabin. That's what Austin and I reenacted. Of course, you know, he was probably David Spade, truth be told. Even though he has the girth to be forgot his name. What a shame. Oh no. I was just informed that was never released. Well, we'll have to fucking put that one on the Lost Levels, Super Mario Lost Levels of BSR podcast. Because it was pretty funny. The Street Fighter BA Start podcast sponsored tournament, because I host tournaments every I don't know if I did back then. I did tournaments every Wednesday for a while, and those were going really well, and then they stopped going really well. But Street Fighter 5 had just come out, so we invited a bunch of people to our house. I want to say yeah, like it was just people, me, like Juan and Alex Russ, or Zero Syndicate, who I affectionately dubbed Zero Shitter Tits. He he came, and no one else really played, but people were there, and it was enough fun. It was fun. Game's super boring to watch. If you listen to podcasts, you'll hear my fucking journey with that game, and now it's even worse. That tournament was all right. It was the early stage in the game, so it was sort of more exciting, but the game is balls. The Patreon, I wasn't super psyched about. Just because I think I didn't mind the idea of it, but I just thought it was too early in its in the podcast life cycle. Like, if we were going to get a fan base of some sort and they like really wanted to be supportive, that's fine, but at the time we only had a very small couple people who listened to the podcast, and they were all just like personal friends of mine or people I knew really well, and I felt bad like asking anyone for money for like really anything, so that kind of went into it. Like so really it was just like not unnecessary eventually, and with something like that it sucks because there's expenses with that sort of thing, especially the way we were doing it, and I don't think it was a terrible idea down the road. I just didn't think at the time that we introduced it, I don't think it was a good look. And it didn't feel good, most of all. When I knew it was kind of coming to an end, I don't know if I necessarily thought it was coming to an end. It was just more of a progressively getting tired of it sort of thing. It was, at first it was like, okay, these are lasting, we're starting at 10 o'clock at night, or 11 o'clock or whatever, and they're lasting 4 hours. It was like, okay, I don't want to do that anymore, but whatever. And then it was, nothing against Austin and Dark Souls. I love Dark Souls, but every podcast became a 45-minute Dark Souls talk, and as much as we even liked it, we had no business spending that much time on it, just because anyone having any less interest in it than we had was gonna fucking turn off immediately. So that was getting really tiresome. It sucks because it's a game that there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to say. That, and then it just stopped being fun, and it just was like an obligation for every single Sunday night. That's where I was gonna be. That's what I was gonna do. And on top of that, we were getting less feedback from people. It didn't feel like it was a fun hobby just to do for us for a while, but then it was like, I don't feel a reason to do it anymore. And I don't feel good about the reason we are doing it, so I don't want to do it anymore. But it also, and that being said, that was like all the gaming stuff, and then we switched concepts because we had the most fun with doing just our bullshit ones, which we ended up calling the BA Star Report. And that was fun and everything, but it didn't have the zing zang zoom that the other one did, and it just was like, it kind of got lost, and that stopped being fun too. So that was kind of where it all fell apart. It sucks. It happens. Wish it didn't, but it do. Arguments. I mean, arguments are gonna happen in anything you do. Like, if you have any kind of partner in anything where you're sharing opinions on stuff, you're gonna argue. There's not always gonna be points where you're gonna agree to disagree. You're gonna be passionate in some way about something, but when it's your brother, it's a little different. It's easier to be like, I know you, and shut up. It's easy to tell somebody you'll never not have in your life to shut up and to stop. and that's kind of, that's where a lot of that came from. It's also like maybe because we've done it so often, we've argued so frequently that it's easy to just start doing it and not realize what this might sound like to other people, and just like fall right into that. So yeah, on the podcast, I'm sure, because it's been a while since I've gone back and heard any episode that we argue in, but I'm sure it wasn't a great look, and I'm sure people turned off due to it. It's just one of those things. You got to be able to rein it in, and I guess we couldn't, especially when you're drinking that much. It's just like different thought process on it. Like, that was more of a discussion. They were arguing, but it was still like two ideas. It wasn't just like, shut up, you're wrong. Regrets? No regrets? Probably some regrets. I'd say I really think that switching the focus of the podcast really damaged it more than anything, just because it took away an element of like any sort of structure, and we just went, and it was just rambling, and rambling is not fun to listen to more than often. It can be funny in certain points, but too much is just like, that was the whole thing. That was all it was. And I just wish I could have just convinced Austin to stop talking about Dark Souls. Maybe things would have been different. I don't know. But still, I don't know. Maybe that's not a regret, because I think I was really just getting tired of doing it every single week for all that time. I don't know. I don't really have any regrets except for that one. I don't know. Let's say for a long time there, I don't know if I'm still in it now, there was a cooldown. We used the command, and it was on cooldown for a really long time. I was super not into the idea of a podcast, but what's funny is that when we started it, a lot of people started them. A lot of people I know tried to start them, and nothing against them. I do think everyone I know who did start one, they're entertaining, but we did it for like 100 fucking episodes, and I think the difference that we had was people who started it, they'd either put too many people in, or they'd put people who might have other obligations, but we're here, we live together, so we always could be like, yeah, it's Sunday, let's do it. So I do a podcast with a couple people. There's a few things that were podcast-esque that I have done since then, but I think now I might do it it'd have to be on my terms. It'd have to be fairly it would have to be like bi-weekly or something. I don't think I could do it every week again, unless there was something coming from it. If it was straight up a job, no fucking problem. Be there, butt crack at noon, every single time. Washboard abs. Well, I'm still streaming on Bazookia at twitch.tv/Bazookia. Yeah, I feel like I haven't had to do this in a while. Go ahead and email the podcast at don't email the podcast. I don't know if it's still active, but don't do it. And I'm on Twitter at the same name. If you would like this or have something to add. If you were a listener and yet you were a lurker, you were in lurk, that's fine. Yeah, I'm still talking shit and still playing fighting games. It was a fucking stumble down the memory stairs.